All right, so number 4, when Jesus says those who lust after a woman commit adultery in their heart, was he only talking about lusting after a woman who's married, or is that statement blanket? And do you want me to do 5 at the same time or separate?
Yeah, let's do 5 as well.
Okay, and 5 is also, do fornication and adultery go hand in hand? It may seem like a simple question, but I was speaking to a gentleman who believes one can fornicate without committing adultery. Is that possible?
So let's talk about first what is it. Yeah, I mean, really, the two do go hand in hand. What is lust? What is adultery? What is fornication? All these things are so interrelated. By the way, I'm still hearing someone's open mic. There we go. So the let's step back and look at God's plan. God's plan we see in Genesis 1, where God made Adam and then he made Eve. And it was said that the two shall be of one flesh. And the implication there is very deep. They not just are emotionally and spiritually one, they're supposed to be physically one, and that includes intercourse. And the whole concept of this oneness is extremely important. I don't think most Christians even comprehend the significance of marriage. It is what truly makes man in the image of God more than any other species. This concept that the two of us, there's a multitude, a couple of us, two of us, who then experience oneness. Two separate beings are like one. And just like the Godhead is that way, right? Jesus says, I and the Father are one. So the Godhead experiences oneness. They're separate beings, but they also are aligned in personality, or sorry, at least character, in their desires, what they want to achieve, their purpose. And God wants the same for man. He wants, or for humanity, he wants us to experience oneness. And so to have this depth of oneness, God made it so that there would be one man and one woman in that marriage and nobody else. No second man, no second woman. Never intended for the man to sleep with other women and the woman to sleep with other men. They would only be intimate with each other. And then any act, any thought, anything that destroys or harms or takes away from that extreme intimacy is, in a sense, going to be a sin of adultery. So, so yeah, sleeping with another man's neighbor, or another man's wife, or sleeping even with someone who's not married, but having multiple partners before being married. All these things are going to affect the person who's sleeping around, not just emotionally, not just spiritually, but also affecting them physically. And then they take that baggage now from sleeping around, and then they bring it into their marriage, and that could affect the relationships and affect their spouse. And we just hear so many stories of people who um, just travesties, and marriages fall apart because of what has happened with their sexual promiscuity and problems arising from that later on in the marriage. That was not God's plan. And so a person who's sleeping around in the marriage is hampering the marriage just as much. Well, I should say just much, but similarly as someone who is downloading pornography, looking at that, watching that, that's also affecting their marriage and affecting their level of attraction to their spouse. And anytime that they are uh, relieving themselves in a way so that then they don't want to have intercourse with their spouse, well, that now has, in a sense, denied their spouse a privilege, a beautiful moment that was supposed to be shared between the two of them. So it is such an important thing to understand that God really, really intended you to be all in on one person, and just sort of have your heart completely for them, and to have an absolute trust between each other. It's supposed to be such a beautiful, amazing thing. And yeah, the pornography and cheating and promiscuity, even before marriage, all affects it. So let me just read the question, make sure I covered it. So do fornication and adultery go hand in hand? Yep, we were just talking about it. It may seem like a simple question, but I'm speaking to a gentleman who believes one can fornicate without committing adultery. Is that possible? Again, absolutely not. Those people are taking very literally the language in the Ten Commandments, and the Ten Commandments do not show the full depths of the requirements of God's law. It's kind of God's law for dummies. But remember, the essence of God's law is love. Love God and love others. And in the case of adultery, we're talking about your love for your spouse. And if you're going to say, hey, don't worry, spouse, I slept with someone who's not married, so it should be okay. I didn't sleep with our neighbors' wives. Like, that's not going to make them feel better. And it shouldn't, because the idea was you are all in loving that one person.